Good morning, everyone. Nemo here. Today we're going to be answering the question about spiritual ego. What is spiritual ego? So I'd like to first break this down into ego, spirituality, and then tie it all together at the end. So let's jump right in. First off, addressing the word ego, I'm going to give my personal stance on this. That's when I talk about ego, I'm talking about the framework, the set of stories and associations we each have in our head of like what it is that creates our own self-image and the relation between our self-image and the world around us. So let me explain what I mean by that. I think it kind of speaks for itself. I hope that speaks for itself. Self-image. When you are at home alone, or in any, I don't know, when you think of yourself, like, do you think of yourself as tall, fat, courageous, timid? The associations that you personally have about your own individual person. That's what I mean by ego. And and let's include like what I think of that. I think it's that coupled with how that relates to all the world around you. So that's what I mean when I use that word ego, but I understand that everyone uses that word from every kind of religion, every kind of philosophy and background. So I like to be really clear and ask questions whenever we start getting into heady conversations like, well, what do you mean when you say that word? Some religions may hold the ego is something, the evil part of you. I've heard that one before, but I don't exactly know who says that, or I can only speak from my own story. So then jumping to spirituality, the next term I want to define, I don't know that I even have a personal definition for that. I don't, once upon a time, I definitely, asked me 5 years ago, I might have had something to say on that. But today, I really don't know. I'm really drawing a blank about what that could mean. So I'm going to draw on what I perceive other people mean by spirituality. And that is trying to be concise and other than complex about this. What I interpret that to mean when other people are using these terms, spirituality, I interpret it as if they're talking about some sense of an emotional, sensational sort of experience that they have in relation to other people and other things, and it's a really big network of associations that I interpret when I hear people talking about spirituality. Things that come to mind are people sitting in meditation, people going to yoga, people reading holy texts of all kind. And so I did, back in the day, it was 3 years ago, I did travel to India, to Rishikesh, India. It's actually where the Beatles went and spent a sabbatical there. I actually went and even saw it's just renowned today as the Beatles ashram. I don't remember what the actual name for it is. But yeah, I went and took a little tour of that place. There's a gang, an actual gang that is squatted there for so long. They man the gate and they charge an entry fee to come in, and they live in a little building up front, and yeah, so they patrol the place because the state usually runs all the churches or the ashrams around there, the temples. They provide subsidies, much like in America. If you're a religious faction, then you're tax exempt. Usually kind of falls under the same thing. A similar thing. I can't speak too much. I'm not super knowledgeable on it. But yeah, the state since gave up that ashram, and now this gang runs it. Coming back to the point, while I was in India, in Rishikesh, this like spiritual hub, yeah, I encountered so many different kinds of interpretations about spirituality and spiritual ego. And one of the funniest things I remember, I wrote this down in my journal as it happened. I was in a little cafe, and I heard these guys across the cafe boasting to each other very loudly about how much they were killing their ego. The one, I remember the quote, I can still hear it right now. He goes, "Dude, we are so totally killing our egos right now." And I'm just thinking to myself, said the ego. So, I guess another, I can elaborate a little bit, like some interpretations I have about ego is, you know, this, no. This is not my interpretation, but one thing I see a lot of people identifying their ego as is like something that needs to be separate, that they need to be separated from, which to me is just another like mental trap you're putting yourself in. Because again, I'm coming at this from my interpretation of what it is, like what an ego is, which is just, you know, your sense of self and your sense of association to the world around you. So for me, ego is nothing nefarious, nor is it anything benevolent. It's just, it's you. It's your own mental interpretation, your cognitive logic for like, what am I? Who am I? And how do I relate to the world? And so from where I'm coming from, when I hear people talking about like needing to kill their ego or talking about the ego as this bad thing, I'm like, dude, that's you. Like, I don't know, but again, this is kind of a heady topic, heady conversation, so I think that like I don't ever really go and engage or confront anyone on these issues because to me that's just going further down into some wormhole trap that like what's the point? What benefit or value? I don't really get much benefit or value out of that, so I don't really care to engage on those things. So spirituality, kind of to wrap this up, I know I've been bouncing all over the place. Thank you for everyone and your patience for sticking along if you are. It's just, it's kind of like another religion to me. You know, it's just a more like pantheistic kind of broader take on some external force that rules, you know, some force other than oneself that governs or dictates life. And that's my take on spirituality. Probably just the broadest kind of religion that there is. So spiritual ego to me then is when someone starts to believe of themselves as like becoming enlightened, or which in a very large degree, and most of the people I've seen like that use, you know, these terms enlightened, or, you know, this whole laundry list of terms, I don't want to get lost on that, I've rabbit trailed so much already, is that they start to take this on as if like, oh, now that I've come to this part of life, like now I'm better, or, you know, wiser than all of you, and, you know, all the rest of the world, society and governments and politics of the world, you know, is all beneath me. And, you know, because I can, you know, detach from material possessions, you know, I'm so much more righteous. This internal, even if they don't wear it on their sleeve, this attitude that I know something better than you, or I know, you know, I know more than you. You know, the way I believe is the right way of believing. You kind of getting what I'm saying? So spiritual ego to me is yeah, when you, this trap that people fall into, that they believe, you know, suddenly that they get in a battle with the ego in their own head. They get in a battle with their own interpretation of who they are, and you know, they start to impose all these rules and conditions on themselves that, like, they need to I need to change. You know, I need to pull myself out of this one way of conforming to the world and now adapt to this newfound way of conforming to the world. And let me, like, be real boastful about it while all along the way, and go and, you know, this guy JP Sears. Oh man, he's, you know, kind of a YouTube phenomenon. He goes around on, like, comedy speaking tours all over the country. I've actually gotten to see him before. Amazing, hilarious guy. I think he totally nails this in his very first viral video. You know, like, how to be ultra spiritual. If anyone, go watch JP Sears Ultra Spiritual. I think that, in a nutshell, captures spiritual ego. Is just going from, you know, one societal belief to another, and suddenly believing like you're so much better of a person for having done so. That's my take on spiritual ego. Hope you enjoyed it. If you got any thoughts of your own, comments, anything you want to contribute, comment below. Like the video, subscribe if you want, and there will be more to come. I'm Nemo, out.